Bonjour there! That's the extent of my French, and welcome to the review of a French car. This is the cheaper Citroen C3. That's right, an all-new car that's actually cheaper than the one it replaces. But more on that in a bit. First, let's roll some credits and then get into the review of the Citroen C3.
Dream, search, drive. Cars.co.za.
Whether you're an angel, a dictator, a space captain, a tree, or just if your car is stolen, we'll help you replace it.
Oh, it's still Archie's car, man.
With no drama. Budget, the official insurer of good South Africans.
Now, it's not every day that a car being replaced comes in at a cheaper price than the model it is actually replacing. And that's because the new C3 is built in India, but also because it's no longer a hatchback. It's actually a crossover now, and a cheaper crossover to be exact. It's now a budget crossover, so competing with the likes of your Suzuki Ignis, Suzuki Swift. There's actually just an array of Suzukis in there. You can even think of the Celerio and even the Toyota Vitz as rivals. Other potential rivals you may want to look at are things like the entry-level Nissan Magnite and its sister or brother, the Renault Kiger. Those are both sort of crossover entry-level models. And if you want to check out the difference between all of those models, you can use our compare tool where you can compare as many models as you like. Just select them individually and then compare. You can even compare the individual differences only. So check that out. That's on our app and on our mobile site. So it costs 229,000 Rand. There is only one model at the moment. It's the 1.2 Feel, which is what I've got. It's a 1.2 naturally aspirated engine with 61 kilowatts and 150 Newton meters of torque. That's about fair enough for the segment. It's almost identical to the 1.2 that you get in the Suzuki Swift and the Ignis. But it actually feels quite good in here. You've got a reasonable amount of power. I mean, I'm currently carrying about 200 kilograms of weight in here, and cameras and people, and it still feels like it's got ample acceleration to kind of move the people along and accelerate, and even with the aircon on, it doesn't feel lethargic. So I'm actually quite impressed with how the engine delivers its power in this car. The fuel consumption on this Citroen C3 with its 1.2 litre engine is actually pretty good. We've had it for now about 300 Ks and it's done 6.2 litres per 100 kilometers, which is actually pretty good considering that we don't drive it as nicely as probably most owners would. Now that the C3 is built in India, it is cheaper, yes, but the actual quality in here isn't that bad. It's quite good. I've had a little bit of a fiddle around in here. I've knocked a few pieces of trim around and they all feel fairly sturdy. Like here on the door, it's quite solid. Here on the center console, when you move these around, I've been in many Indian cars, and when you kind of do that, the whole transmission tunnel kind of wobbles around, especially in things like the Kiger and the Magnite. But in this, it all feels quite solid. Even like the dash trim and stuff, whilst it's hard plastic, it has like a solid build quality feel about it. And maybe that's why this car is won World Urban Car of the Year. That's pretty high praise from the Europeans and the rest of the world, I guess. In terms of your cabin layout and ergonomics, you've got two drinks holders up front, which are quite spacious. Then you've got two shelves for like a phone or keys and that sort of stuff. It's actually quite laid out in terms of capacity for holding things. Then you've got your two door pockets up here, which are actually pretty big. You've got enough space for at least 2 bottles and a whole lot of stuff to roll around in there. Then obviously a glove box, and in typical French style, the cabin isn't as boring as you get in some of these in this segment. You've got like this golf ball dash up the front there, which makes it extremely aerodynamic inside the cabin. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of air that moves through here to test those aerodynamics, but if it is shaped like a golf ball, it's bound to be aerodynamic. You've also got some nice little metallic surrounds on the aircon vents, which is fancy, and then for the rest of the part, it's kind of standard budget car. But I have to say, at least there is some intent to make a nice design cabin. At this price point, people are particularly feature focused. It's about getting as much car for your money as you possibly can. And the Citroen has a lot of spec in it. For instance, this screen is going to blow people away when they get into it. I mean, it's a 9-inch screen. The image is really high quality. There's no reverse camera on it, unfortunately. It's only got rear parking sensors. But it does have wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. There isn't a wireless charger, but there is a USB port up front for charging if you want, and a 12-volt socket as well. As I mentioned earlier, air conditioning in here, and you've got electric windows on both sides. But one of the features they could have surely added is electric mirrors. I mean, it's been a long time since I've moved a mirror manually in a car, and it's the same for the passenger side, where you got to reach across or ask your buddy in the passenger seat to move the mirror, at which point they just send it to the complete outskirts and think it's a joke. But yeah, I think that could have been improved. Aside from the fancy center screen, you get a digital readout here in the side, no analog dials anymore. It is quite small. I would have used up more of this space here for something a little bit more premium. You've got like almost like a black and white dot matrix readout of your speed, what gear you should be in, and then you've got a little button in the front there to change your trip computer. I would have made that a little bit nicer if it was my choice, but I mean, it is a budget car, and obviously costs are going to be cut in certain places. Even though the steering wheel is only rake adjustment and not reach adjustable, it is nice to have a seat that you can adjust for height to get yourself into some form of comfortable seating position, whereas many of the competitors have foregone the height adjustment. You kind of just sit in, and whatever position you're in is it. So like something like the Espresso, you kind of sit on top of the car up here, which is not ideal. Welcome to the boot of the Citroen C3. Now, the manufacturer claims 315 liters of boot space, and if I can find where to open it, I can report that it is 315 liters, but that's actually quite big in the segment. Most of them sort of average about 280, 290, but only the Cars.co.za cooler box will really test it out. So there is a bit of a drop into the boot here as it goes in, so be aware of that. But overall, there's quite a bit of space between the cooler box and the front of the boot, and most of the plastic around here is actually decent quality. A lot of the time with Indian spec stuff, it can be a little bit iffy in terms of the quality here. You have also two shopping hooks here, which are fairly sturdy as well. Under the floor, you've got a full-size spare, which is nice. I would have liked to have seen a rear split seat. This is a single unit that kind of folds down as one. It's always nice to have a split unit folding seat, but that isn't standard in this sort of segment. So overall, I think it's passed the boot test. If you want to carry people in your C3, I'm sure that you're going to want to know about the rear seat comfort and legroom. In terms of legroom, it's actually pretty good back here. There's quite a lot of knee room and leg space. The seats are pretty comfy, and the back seat rest isn't too upright, so that's actually quite comfortable. In terms of features back here, you've got dual electric windows, two USB ports for charging, and you've got cup holders back here, but they are at like a tilted angle, so make sure whatever you've drunk is sort of half empty before you put it in there. Then in terms of seat belts, you've got this lap belt for the middle passenger and two 3-point seat belts on the side there, and there aren't any ISOFIX points here. And strangely, you've got no seat pouch here, but you do have one on the passenger seat. And here's the thing, in like my 15 years of testing back seats, this is the first time I've ever seen this feature. Now, it may be on other cars, but I've only ever seen it here. If I undo this latch and this one, open the door, check this out. You can literally run away with the back seat. One of the things in this segment that really differentiates the C3 from the others is the way it drives. Things like the Suzuki Ignis, Renault Kwid, those sorts of cars, when you drive them out on a bumpy road or in the wind, they tend to feel quite buffety and they're easily moved around and they don't feel confidence inspiring through the steering. So I am quite impressed with the C3. It rides quite well. It's relatively quiet in the cabin as well, and I feel completely in control, not like I'm going to be blown over in the wind. The ride quality is actually quite impressive for a car coming from India. Now, whilst I really like things like the ride quality, I quite like the engine, the 5-speed manual gearbox is quite good, I do think that Citroen may have missed the mark with the safety features here. Cars like the Swift and the Ignis, they come with stability control, and those are kind of known devices that reduce the chance of an accident. It's actually a well-known statistic that stability control had saved more lives than seatbelts. It's probably the one item you want most in a car, but it is an expensive item. And when you are cutting costs on your car or trying to compete in the budget segment, it's often easy to remove a safety feature like that to reduce the cost. But it may come in future models. Citroen has said there may be a turbo coming as well as an automatic later on in 2024. So after-sales service hasn't always been the forte of the French brands in South Africa. I'm sure everybody's heard a story about a Citroen that they couldn't get parts for, or a Peugeot that spent a lot of time being fixed. Now, because this is Indian built, you would expect that things are a little bit easier to come by and a little bit cheaper to repair. So Citroen has offered a 3-year, 100,000 kilometer warranty with this car and a 2-year, 30,000 kilometer service plan. Now, that's kind of standard for the segment. It's nothing special. If I was trying to get Citroen back into the mainstream of motoring vehicles in South Africa, I would have gone with maybe a 3-year service plan and made it 60,000 kilometers, or heck, 90,000 kilometers. Something that really shows that you're convinced with the reliability of this car. But nevertheless, it is on par with its rivals, so we can't really complain about that. Should you buy a Citroen C3 budget crossover? Well, it is priced quite well, but the segment is dominated by the Suzuki Swift and the Polo Vivo. If you want a budget car, that's kind of where you go. And Suzuki does offer a lot of value in this segment. But if you don't want a Suzuki, you want something slightly different, but has good ride comfort, a quality and like design-oriented interior, I think the Citroen C3 is a very good prospect right now, and this 9-inch touchscreen is certainly going to appeal to those who are a little bit more tech savvy. If this C3 had stability control and a longer service plan, it would make it much more recommendable. For the moment, it's just a good car with good ride quality that you may want to consider if you're in the budget crossover segment.
Cars.co.za. Not only is Cars.co.za the best place to find your dream car, but it's also the easiest place to sell your current car. Check out the sell car section on our main website. Simply list your car's details and all of our dealers will take bids on your car. You just choose the highest price. Boom, your car's gone. On to your next one. Right, thanks very much for watching the video. Okay, I think I'm done. Yeah, I'm finished now.
Whether you're an angel, a dictator, a space captain, a tree, or just if your car is stolen, we'll help you replace it.
Who would steal Archie's car, man?
With no drama. Budget, the official insurer of good South Africans.